It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
Car con carne live from quarantine on a Monday night. It's Quarantine Con Carne, sponsored tonight by C&H Financial Services. As business owners open back up to serve their communities, they're faced with a lot of challenges as they navigate through this new normal brought on by the coronavirus. C&H Financial Services, they're here to help. They offer a variety of products that range from traditional merchant accounts to a zero-cost payment processing solution, which eliminates the expense associated with accepting Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express as a form of customer payment. Hope everything's okay over there. C&H Financial Services eTab solutions, easy to set up for your business for online ordering and curbside pickup. C&H also offers cost-effective commercial lending programs. This is key. They can help you get your business the money it needs to make it through these unprecedented, nay, dystopian times. To learn more, contact C&H Financial Services at 855-600-2437 or go to chfs.us. Tonight, my guest, he is Steve Karras. He is a documentary filmmaker. The film in question we're going to talk about tonight, About Face, the story of the Jewish refugee soldiers of World War II. Steve, nice to see you. It's been several decades.
Well, I did, as I said, I ran into you at Marshall Crenshaw and Smithereens show, which was in your neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
Who knew Skokie could rock the way that it did?
I was well aware of that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, back in the day, in radio terms, last time I interviewed you was in the 90s?
I think whenever, it must have been in 98 or 99. It could have been 2000, but I have a feeling it was, I'd just been with Sourball for a few months, and Mike Datz, who is still a very dear friend of mine, he was very ambitious and extraordinarily talented, and Jay Batchko was with us, and I remember it's still on.
These are all local musicians of
yes,
great
in
skill.
Chicago.
Yeah,
absolutely. Mike lives in Los Angeles. Jay still lives in Chicago. But midway through the interview, you said porn. You guys like porn, don't you? And it turned into this awesome. Yeah, it turned into.
I don't remember this. I don't remember this, Steve.
I'm gonna have to send it to you because it was just so. It was fun. It was such a fun time to be in a band in Chicago. So much cool stuff was happening in the 90s. So
we talked about porn on the radio. That doesn't sound like me.
We did, but in such a way without the cursing. Like you told me that you and your buddies get together and you make up names for pornos, and that
sounds right. Yeah.
And then we all started throwing out names and of pornos, and Jay just said the classic one. He said caviar dinner. And then someone corrected him and said caviar party, which is like, I still don't know what it means. Like I think you said Ben Hur.
Oh yeah. That was me.
Yeah, you said Ben Hur, and I said On Golden Blonde, which was actually a film.
A timeless classic.
It really is. It really is. And I think it was around that time that I probably was getting bit by the World War II history bug. And that's when it all started, oddly enough.
Yeah, of course. All those porn titles made you think I'm going to be a filmmaker.
Well, no, it was the music. I don't know. No, it was. I had already gotten into it, and I think that, I had my first straight job at the time, which was working as a software installer for a sales team that never made any sales, and it was for some company out of Las Vegas. I won't mention the name, but they traded on the NASDAQ as P-Pro, and I had all these pre-IPO stocks and pre-stock options, which I vested the week that I got fired from that job, and I was able to cash them. And
that's amazing.
That point, yeah, and
that's a happy ending
to an extent. It got me started and hooked up with all the cool filmmakers that worked on the project. And it's notwithstanding, my marriage that fell apart, later on. But it was all from you to, let's say, 2005. It was a glorious time.
I'm glad it could be one of those bookends.
Yeah,
Glad it was on the front
and
end of it.
now you're on you actually have bookended it, but no, I'm being semi-ironic. I do have a nice child out of the affair.
Well, that's good. Congratulations.
No, but we're all over the place. So yeah, we my connection to you is through my brief sojourn in Chicago rock, although I still play, but not in not radio friendly sense.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it was a wonderful time, and it's nice that we can circle back and talk about something completely different.
Yeah,
now.
Absolutely.
And it's nice that we can go into this kind of heady discussion about World War II and Germans teaming up with the Allies to fight the Nazis. Nice that we could lead into that with talk of rock and roll and pornography.
Sure.
Totally normal. Totally.
Well,
normal.
there's also a connection because John Cale scored my film.
John
Cale. Yes. So
as
that's
Velvet
John
Underground
Cale.
is in John Cale.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's that was also through another Chicago drummer named Bill Swartz, who had actually played on a couple of John Cale demos. And I thought, wow, this, John Cale, who I knew about, and I knew that he was such a sophisticated European, or Welshman, same thing. And I got his number or his email or his agent's email. And I emailed her, said, would John be interested in being the possible musical score or write it? And that's exactly what happened. And it cost a lot, but it was worth it.
Well, you're answering all the questions I was going to ask later on in the interview. The score, the work John Cale did, appropriately understated in the documentary.
Yes.
It totally fits tonally. It makes sense with the movie, but you never listen and say, oh, that's John Cale. It's just, it's a really appropriately scored documentary.
You do at one point hear the viola that sounds exactly like Stephanie Says or something that you would have heard in those early Velvets recordings. I think Stephanie Says is John Cale era.
So you get his work back and you hear it. Do you get like
you hear
goosebumps
it
in here?
If you're a fan, I remember thinking, oh my goodness.
That's what I'm asking. Like, did you just kind of flip
Yeah, absolutely. But I remember at first, because I'd never made a film. I haven't made one since. It was a long time. And I'll talk about, I had a collaborator, Rose Lizarago, who's here in Chicago, and we both went out there together. We produced it. She's co-director, all this kind of stuff. And we both went out to this studio in Hollywood called Radio Recorders. And it was the old RCA recording studio, which I think Elvis Presley had recorded some of his movie songs, like Kissing Cousins, or I don't know if Scotty Moore ever went into the studios with him there, but it was very cool. And I didn't know how anything is scored, let alone, my thing. So at first I didn't know how to communicate and what I had, what I wanted, because he was, messing around with the synth and stuff. And I said, no, I think Samuel Barber, because I was thinking of the Adagio for strings that opens the movie Platoon, and then it just, we connected on that front, because at first I was not properly communicating.
Right, you just didn't have that experience.
Yeah, so, and I'm geeking out because this is like my hero.
Sure, he's an architect of modern music. Period.
Yes,
full stop.
Absolutely, and still is. He's amazing.
So the movie, again, you can rent it on Amazon right now. About Face, the story of the Jewish refugee soldiers of World War II. I think a lot of us are in documentary mode right now. We've binged all the TV shows, we've watched all the movies. I think a lot of us are digging into history in this time when we're all kind of sheltering in place and we're trying to contextualize the world around us. Really well-timed release of this movie, I think. I'm sure it was coincidental, but
totally really coincidental. If not incidental, we waited nearly a decade for this to come out, and it would. At first, I remember finishing it and saying, "I just want it to be in a blockbuster." I want someone to be able to rent it. That was at the very beginning, and then thanks to video, streaming, I hooked up with this distributor out in California called Xenon Pictures, and they are the largest repository for Black cinema. And the principal of the company, Lee Savage, was nominated for an Academy Award for Straight Outta Compton. Like, he was involved in the story and bringing it together. And it's just a strange marriage. And at first, we had to change the what's called the lower thirds on the bottom of the screen. It was just, we had a chance to recut to make a 2020 version of the film, which was good. Put it in high definition, and looks brand new. And it is timely if you want to talk themes.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and this answers a question that comes up a lot. And someone says it at the end of the movie. All Jews didn't go like lambs to the slaughter. The question of why didn't people fight back? Why didn't people press back against the Nazis? That's part of the story here. I mean, these people who went away from and then against their homeland to fight alongside the Allies as this Nazi menace was doing all their horrible things. What inspired you to go down this road? Because this is so much work, literally a decade worth of time, investment, blood, sweat, and tears. Why this particular angle of World War II?
It really came out of its roots date back to when I was 12 or 13. At summer camp in Wisconsin, when I had one of my counselors tell me that his father had been one of these refugees that went and liberated one of his, that went to his hometown. His name was Siegfried Dingfelder. His son was Roger Fields. And so it always stuck in my craw. It was something that was so exotic, and I couldn't believe that something like this happened. Can you hang on 1 second, James? This is 1 sec.
So it's Car Con Carne.
Yeah. I'm.
You're still here?
I'm still here. I am just turning something on for my daughter, and now
I get it.
Return. So 1 second.
This is how you know it's live. The muting of the camera and the microphone, and he's gone again. If you're watching on Facebook Live, thank you for doing it. Car Con Carne is sponsored by C&H Financial Services. Steve's going to do a little walk through his house. It looks lovely. It looks tastefully appointed. I'd expect nothing less. Tomorrow night on Car Con Carne, I might as well use this time to promote what's coming up on Car Con Carne. Tomorrow night, if you join us, Empirical Brewery will be talking to us. They're a nerdy brewery on the north side. Love them. Wednesday, Chris France, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club. His new book, Remain in Love, is Steve's back, and he's making bug eyes. He can't believe I just said Chris France. His new book, Remain in Love, is a fantastic snapshot of one of the coolest periods of rock and roll history, talking about the birth of Talking Heads, the evolution of Talking Heads, coming up with the Ramones and Blondie and the B-52s. Just amazing stories. His ongoing romance and marriage to Tina Weymouth of Talking Heads, the insanity that is David Byrne. Chris will be joining me on Wednesday, and of course more to come. Looks like Steve is back with us. Had to get my little plug in here. Unmute yourself.
I said, what about the kindness of Jerry Harrison?
It's interesting. Jerry Harrison doesn't get mentioned as much. The
Really?
thing I thought, and I'm going to talk about this with Chris France, but the thing I thought was really interesting, I didn't know this. Jerry Harrison didn't agree or wouldn't join Talking Heads until they could confirm they had a record deal. Because Jerry was successful with the Modern Lovers. He was already like a name. He was already a guitarist of renown. And he said, yeah, I'll join your band, but you got to have a record deal first. So Christina and David were doing their thing. They got the deal with Sire, I believe it was. And then Harrison was on board. And then, here, rest is history.
I'm proud to say that John Cale produced the first Modern Lovers LP.
See, it all.
See, it all comes back to the Holocaust. So, but to answer to what I was going to say, the roots is me as a kid, and I remember that. Do you remember that miniseries, The Holocaust, that had come out?
Sure.
It was it was pretty. There was a moment in that. This was in the 70s. This is with like Fritz Weaver and I think Sam Bottoms was in the film, and all these interesting people. And there was a section about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which I think at the time and the way they presented it wasn't exactly how it happened, but it was Jewish people, victims of the Holocaust, that were actually fighting back. And when I'd heard about this gentleman, Fred Fields, who had been Siegfried Zingfelder, it kind of it stuck in my mind because I always wanted to hear more stories like this. And apart from like a scant reference to it in a book or someone that I might have met along the way, it wasn't I didn't have many in the aggregate to choose from to go out and start interviewing them. And this is back in 99 or 2000 when I got the idea. But so it was just this ongoing interest that was never satisfied. And when the internet came out, probably probably a couple of years before I met you, I just for fun, I put an ad on or some kind of message board for World War II. And a veteran got a hold of it. Mind you, these were like 79, 80-year-old guys back then. Most of them are gone. So in retrospect, I'm blown away by how many were internet savvy at the time and had email address. And there's a gentleman in the film. He's actually not in the movie. You hear his voice in the answering machine messages in the very beginning of the film. And he was a survivor with his own amazing story. His name was Leo Bretholtz, and he actually jumped out of a freight train bound for Auschwitz, got out, and he wrote a book called Leap into Darkness about his odyssey after escaping a train out of Gurs, France. I think, or Gurs was where the transit camp was. And so he hooked me up in one afternoon. I think I'd come back from work and had all of these answering machine messages. Like,
I was wondering how you got hold of all these people and like knew how to find them, or it sounds like they found you. Yeah.
Yes. It was word of mouth. And then we had some press, and then like the old, what's that old commercial, and so on and so on. Was that a shampoo commercial?
I think it was. Yeah.
All right. So Fabergé or something like that. So I still hear about people. I'll come in contact with someone who, that describes my grandfather. And so I would have kept interviewing people. In fact, I did that for 2 years of going around the country interviewing folks before, and I'd set up a foundation. Then I hooked up with Rose, and she said, it's time to, stop interviewing people. Let's put this thing together. And because at first, I had a general vision, but then you become attached to some of these individuals. Most of them, you can only put 15 people in a documentary to make it compelling. Right. And some have good stories, but don't know how to tell it. And that also, while I waited for the documentary to come out, I wrote a companion book, which contained full interviews, transcribed or edited memoirs. And I took a shot at that. So, because I'm mostly concerned and consumed with the actual subject. I haven't. This should be a warning for prospective filmmakers or ones who just make another film. Don't wait for it to get distribution. If you're a filmmaker, make another film. Or if you write, there's an old I think Elvis Costello once said, like, you get like 18, 19 years to make your first record and then 7 months to make your second one. Well, I feel that I waited a long time, but it was the subject that was so compelling, and also a feeling that you owe these people to tell their stories.
I get that.
Yeah. So it's, but again, it's a gift that keeps giving, because I have spoken about it. I've had little screenings over the last several years, and the book, and I've had some radio. So it's something that I'll never tire of talking about, especially when people, like you and others will say, I never knew this happened. Well, this is the best kind of revisionism.
Yeah, it is one of those aspects of World War II we never really heard much about, and that's the hook. I mean, that's the fascinating part of all this. Talking about the people you interviewed, it's got to be that generation. What a bunch of charming guys you talked to.
Oh yeah,
just magnetic smiles, engaging personalities. What an interesting group of people you had the fortune to talk to.
Yeah, two of those gentlemen I interviewed on the same day. The one that we went back to Germany with, Ludwigshafen, his name is Eric Hamburg, and I think he might still be alive actually. And then when I was done with his interview, this is in New Jersey. It was in Union, New Jersey, and I said, this was the best interview. Nothing. I can't imagine doing another interview today. And we just reluctantly went to the next place. I was tired, and that was the most engaging interview. Carl Goldsmith, and he's the one that I know that he's one of the guys that you're talking about. He passed away, but he's the one who ended the film when he says, "I'm just a flag waver," just these beautiful blue eyes, and he was so nice. And again, it's just like that's what kept the momentum. Is just the connection with these guys. I didn't get that with Kissinger, but he was nice.
that was a nice score for interview subject.
Yeah. He said, thanks for not giving me a hard time. Like when I went in there, he said, you've got 20 minutes. I said, I thought you get 40. I thought I got 40 with you. He says, you could negotiate the other 20, which was
spoken like a true former Secretary of State.
Absolutely. But that was the same week that the Christopher Hitchens book came out called The Trials of Henry Kissinger. So that was, I think he was entirely pleased that someone was coming up to not talk about some dubious things in his past. Dubious maybe from his point of view, but not for the rest of the people that had bad things to say about him.
Watching these stories, hearing these remembrances, it's hard to even imagine putting yourself in the context of what these guys lived through. I mean, back then, the British government took in 10,000 children. Can you imagine, and this is a rhetorical, I'm not asking you, Steve, but just in general, can you imagine having to send your kids off knowing, you'll probably never see them again? Get them the hell out of the country and just hope that they'll survive and live to tell the tale someday.
I think that question that you just said never resonated with me until I had a child of my own, who's now at the age that some of these parents sent the kids off. And I don't think I could. I don't think I could imagine that. Honestly,
it is unthinkable. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, how horrifying. And it was, I mean, when you're faced with an extreme situation, you have to make an extreme decision. It's an extreme consequence. And that's the decision these people made. But holy crap.
Yes. In fact, I remember I had sort of a chip on my shoulder because I'm going to show people that, Jewish people didn't go like lambs to the slaughter. And there's wonderful stories of heroism and everything. And I was only thinking in terms of an armed struggle against, Nazi Germany. And Michael Berenbaum, who is the executive producer, or one of them, of the film. He was also the historical advisor, and he appears in the film. He broke it down for me, which was actually kind of a lesson, because I hadn't considered. He said, look, heroism comes in so many different forms. And he did say those parents who sent their kids off not knowing if that took so much courage.
Oh, yeah.
An enormous amount that you couldn't possibly imagine. And until I had a child of my own, I think history resonates so much deeper than it would if I didn't. And that's not to say that you can't appreciate that, but I couldn't imagine having to explain what's going on in the world.
Right.
And I'm getting a feel. I get a feel for that now. It's hard to explain what's going on in the world beyond the COVID, which none of us could really explain because it's happening right now.
Uh-huh.
But just the whole tenor of political discussion, which is pretty extreme right now. And luckily, she just she likes watching videos on YouTube, but nothing controversial. And you know, the subject of race doesn't get talked about because it's just, she doesn't know about those things.
Yeah.
Nor, I'm raising her the way I was raised, in a profoundly liberal household where it was just not discussed because we knew right from wrong. And then my high school experience, which was so multicultural, that I wish that upon every kid who's growing up right now, so they don't have this they don't have to kind of tap into the narrative of just this totally imperfect country that's wrought with racism, which I personally don't believe, but that's a whole different story. That's not to say that there's an incredible amount of racism, but it doesn't define us. And I really think that after studying so close, like the topic of Nazi Germany and what went on with people who lost their citizenship, you could definitely find correlations nowadays with what's going on, but it's not exactly that. And it makes me, it engenders more of my appreciation for this country, because I think it's basically good, although very flawed.
Of course.
Very flawed.
What else? You went into making this movie, doing these interviews, probably with some idea of how things would shake out, how the conversation would go, what you'd learn. What were those surprises? What were those things you learned that you hadn't been expecting? What were those things that you thought, wow, I'm glad I made this movie because of this?
Well, it's interesting. I almost wish you asked this question prior to my last response, but it's actually, it's good to piggyback on it. I was going for the great revenge story, and it never happened. There would be things. I think 10 to 12 or 15 interviews into it, I said, wow, I'm not getting this sense of hatred, and I'm not getting this sense of revenge. I'm finding people that had this great fortune of getting out in the 30s, some as late as 1941, before the American involvement in World War II, that they weren't imbued with this sense of hostile revenge as much as they were, wow, I'm grateful to have been let into this country. And oh my God, I'm not getting any anti-Semitism in the streets like I did in Germany. And wow, I can't enlist, but they did draft me and I became a citizen. And so I felt that there was this overwhelming positivity going on. And I saw, and I certainly knew by getting to know them that their post-war lives were, I got the feeling that those who were very successful, and most of them were, success maybe as a parent, if at the very least, but good, business owners, good citizens, and they really lived up to whatever expectations were made of them. And so I got gratitude over revenge, and that kind of set that was a huge lesson to me. It still is. It actually taught me that I should be a little more positive, as opposed to just focusing on what one of my history professors called LACHRYMOSE history, where you're just focusing on, that's a big word, you might have to look it up. LACHRYMOSE. Yeah, it's like a lachrymose sense of history, where it's about how you've suffered and how, it's like, I was raised by people who didn't really drum into the fact that drum into me that we're hated. This is an anti-Semitic world. This is something that's you're gonna have to fight your way out of schoolyards. Fortunately, I haven't had that experience, but I also saw that these guys were more and women were more inclined to talk about the good things. And I even saw in their body language that they would get so excited. Naturally, when you're talking about not being able to see your parents again, that's a different story. So it's a bittersweet experience. And it's something I'm still learning about.
LACHRYMOSE, adjective, tearful or given to weeping, as in, she was pink-eyed and lachrymose. Thank you, Steve. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot.
Yeah. If anything, if you don't agree with anything that I said tonight, LACHRYMOSE.
That's it. That says it all.
It'll hopefully it'll replace the word iconic, which I think is just way too abused.
Oh, you know what word I hate? Legendary. He's a
Oh
legend.
yeah.
She's a legend. They're a legend. That movie's
What
a
about an
legend.
icon?
Icon's bad too. But I feel like the legendary status has been ascribed to a lot of people who don't really deserve to be called legends. A little
Well, but if
premature.
I find that you're a legend.
Stop it.
I
Stop
mean,
it.
I'm excited. I'm still excited.
You talked about, okay, so you got John Cale to score it.
Yes.
You got Kissinger to talk. One of the hardest things, I mean, for me, just as someone who sources audio and spends the day scouring for content, gathering all the footage to use in this documentary, whether it's the marches through France, the shakedowns in the street, the moments of brutality we see in vivid black and white. I've got to think that that's a full-time job as a documentary filmmaker in and of itself, just gathering all that stuff.
Well, I think that 4 or 5, I had a wish list of things that I want, and then we set to getting other people involved. I think 3 of us went to Washington, or 4 of us, and we went to the different archives. Now you could source all this online.
Yeah, that's true.
I even found, though it's not in the film, I found the actual footage of one of the veterans who he translated the surrender of the entire forces of southern Germany under Field Marshal Kesselring, and he's in the John Brunswick, who's in the film, was that lieutenant that was translating it, and I found the newsreel footage of it. It didn't fit. It was fine the way we had it, but that was another thing, in not even the 11th hour. This is a decade later. I found this footage. If anything, I was able to tell his family about it. I found it. That was gratifying.
And it's interesting, these guys who came over here, these Germans who came to America, fought among the Allies, they changed their names. I mean, like their entire lives were upended and turned into a different direction than they ever would have imagined. It's a fascinating story. And again, it's one that's not really been told to any great detail. About Face, the story of the Jewish refugee soldiers of World War II. It is rentable on Amazon Prime. It took you 10 years to make it. Was that longer than you'd expected?
Way longer. Well, I started in 99. The first interview was in November or October. Second one was in around that time. And here I am. I'm back. And ironically, and not even ironically, it's just very sad that one of the second men I interviewed, Otto Stern, his grandson was killed in Iraq in 2005. He too was a lieutenant, so I think he was definitely proud of his grandfather and wanted to fulfill his patriotic chore under different circumstances. His name was Andrew Stern. He was from, I think he grew up in Buffalo Grove, and then the family moved to Nashville. But I think we finished cutting the film in 2006, and then I returned to it in the last year to fix some of the titles, cut some of the things out, and that was it. It's coming to market. What does Will Ferrell say in the thing about his plums? Getting ready for market. So do you know what I'm talking about?
Kind of.
Yeah, all right. From Eastbound and Down. Hang on. Sorry about that. So that we finished in 2006, and then it becomes a full-time job to try to get it seen.
Yeah, then it's a hustle.
Then it's a hustle. Then you move on to other projects, and it's never really been. And I think it became more relevant in the last couple of years. It's almost the timing is everything, and I think that it came out now for a reason. And one of the last lines of the film is, "Don't let a fanatic get a hold of your country." Draw your own conclusions.
So someone rents it tonight, again, or this week, About Face, the story of the Jewish refugee soldiers of World War II. What do you want them to walk away feeling?
Well, if they buy it, I'll come over and do their laundry for
That's not true. That's not true.
Yes. If they're in Chicago, I will,
That's not true.
Ask the question again, because I got
What
thinking
what
about laundry.
what kind of emotion or feeling do you want someone to walk away with after watching the movie?
That's a good question. That the world has been much worse. The world's been much worse, and that history is fraught or with, there is the sadness, there is the tragedy, but there are moments of heroism, and ones that we could still draw intense gratification from and inspiration. And that's what I want people to take away. It's not a revenge film. It's a very inspiring movie, I think.
I agree. All right, Steve, thank you. I'm going to say goodbye to Facebook Live. Thank you, everybody, for watching there. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. See the movie, again, About Face, the story of the Jewish refugee soldiers of World War II. It's a mouthful, but there you go. We'll just say About Face. And thank you for watching on
Thank
Facebook
you so
Live.
much.